Hello and welcome to another Warrior Chat. I'm your host, Doug Walters, and with me today is Mr. Phil Jeffrey, Location Manager for the local First Student Depot. How are you today, Phil?
Fantastic, thank you.
Great to hear it. Well, we're going to get right down to business. We have a very important topic for you today, and that topic is the School Safety Week coming up here in October. And we just wanted to take an opportunity and to share with all of you what we do with the district and with First Student to make sure that our students are safely transported to and from school every day. And what you might not know is it is a very large operation, very complex. And we've taken an opportunity to hit on some of the most important bullet points about bus safety. We also had an opportunity to go out to the First Student location this week and shoot some video, which we'll be sharing with you as well, to give you kind of an insider's view of what happens at the terminal every day, what our drivers do to make sure that students are getting to and from school safely. So Phil, real quick, maybe just tell us, how long has First Student been working with the Southern York County School District?
I believe since 1991.
It's been quite a long time.
Yeah, it was Laidlaw at that point in time, then Laidlaw was purchased by First Student in 2008, but we've been continually servicing the Southern York County School District since 91.
And we've appreciated all of the services that you've provided for us over that time. Just real quick, let's talk about what the relationship is like between the district and First Student. One thing that I always like to highlight is kind of the partnership we have and what I think is almost like a family relationship in that the district and First Student operate closely and communicate throughout every school day and even on our days off to make sure that our transportation system is going to be smooth and efficient, but most importantly, safe. What is First Student's role? Talk about what you do maybe in the transportation committee that we have and who serves on that committee from First Student.
Well, we have various people that serve from time to time on that committee. I agree with the family type of relationship that we have grown to have over the course of the years, which is, being an individual that's been with the First Student, i.e. Laidlaw, for over 20 years. It is a phenomenal relationship. I can't tell you how valuable that is to us because that is something that is very rare in the industry. But as for myself, I am a definite member of the safety committee or the transportation committee. My dispatcher, Janet Hagel, is also a member of that committee. And then we have various drivers that come in to be part of that committee from month to month to give some perspective from their standpoint on the things that we can do to help service the Southern York County School District kids better.
And it's great for us as the district to be able to get that feedback directly from you and your dispatcher and also the drivers on a regular basis. So let's go over what School Bus Safety Week is. It runs from October 19th through the 23rd. Maybe you can share with us what the purpose is and what exactly we're trying to get out to the public and our parents and students during that week.
Okay, yeah, generally the third week in October is set aside for School Bus Safety Week, and it is a time that we can focus on educating students, parents, drivers, the public, school districts on proper school bus etiquette, stopping laws, how to be safe on and off of the bus, how to educate the other drivers out there what the stopping law really is. I think that is a gray area for a lot of drivers, that they're not really totally understand what the school bus stopping law in the state of Pennsylvania is. So this time gives us the opportunity to do an enormous amount of promotions. The state does a lot of press, advertising. They run various programs, some poster contests for school students and so forth that spread the word on school bus safety and safety for schools in general.
Yep. And so throughout the whole month of October, we're going to be focusing on this, but specifically from the 19th to the 23rd, we'll be sharing a lot of messages with our parents and students and taking advantage of some other partnership opportunities we have with local law enforcement, et cetera, to make sure that our school bus operation is absolutely the safest thing. When you think about school bus safety, I think a lot of people might jump right to the iron, the fleet, the vehicles that are on the road every day. But I think it's important to talk about the people, right? I think one of the most important things we can do to make sure our school buses are safe is to find and train and keep the absolute best bus drivers we can. So what sort of training does it take to become a school bus driver?
Well, there's a lot of requirements that actually take place long before training starts. There's a lot of credential checks and clearances that have to be obtained, from criminal history to good driving records to FBI fingerprints, that all have to take place to be able to pass a physical and so forth before the training ever starts. Then once those folks are identified that have all of those credentials, that we can obtain those credentials, then the state requires 14 hours of minimum of classroom training and 6 hours of behind the wheel training. And there's various topics that are covered in that training. Now, first student, as we do our training, we take care into account all of the state's requirements, and then we up that to cover some other requirements. So our drivers get 21 to 25 hours of classroom training and a minimum of 20 hours of behind the road training before we are satisfied that they are able to take a test. The tests, there's a total of 5, and to be able to become credentialed and licensed to drive a school bus in the state of Pennsylvania.
That's a really impressive list of things that the drivers have to go through just before they get behind the wheel with our students on board for the first time.
Exactly.
But then beyond that, what kind of ongoing training do the drivers have to undergo?
Well, there's a lot. Every year, school bus drivers have to pass a physical. They also have to do an annual one-on-one with a certified trainer who's certified both by the state and by First Student. And this is an in-bus evaluation of their driving skills and their ability to continue to do the things that they learned while they were in training. They also have 8 to 10 safety meetings, 1 hour generally every month, that are required, and they cover topics everywhere from student management to adverse driving conditions, how to properly drive in adverse weather and protect the kids, and what to do and what not to do. And so there's a lot. Every 4 years, every school bus driver in the state of Pennsylvania has to recertify, meaning that they have to go back to school for 7 hours. They have to have 3 hours of in-bus training, and then they have to pass their written exam at PennDOT every 4 years.
And that's something a lot of people don't think about. They think maybe a bus driver's job is just what they do when they're behind the wheel.
Right.
But there's so much more happening behind the scenes
really
to prepare them.
Yep.
And we appreciate everything that our drivers do. And in fact, we often ask them to come in, sometimes just one-on-one, but also every school year as a group in our elementary schools to talk about the SWEBS training, about the SWEBS program that our elementary schools run, so that they're on board with that. And really what we do with SWEBS, just to nutshell it, is we look for ways that we can reward positive behaviors and give students opportunities to earn those rewards, and then they can take tickets and things that they get into the schools. So really it becomes an extension of the school day when they're on our buses. We expect them to help the driver keep things safe using those good student management techniques.
And Schweb's is an excellent program. If students are behaved on the bus is much safer, and if their behavior is rewarded positively, it makes that bus ride so much more friendly.
Absolutely. Now let's move on now to the actual fleet.
Okay.
One thing that Southern York prides itself on, and we appreciate First Students' help with, is the actual age of our fleet. Yeah. When you look at the age of our fleet, it's typically averaging about 5 years, and that's taking into account not only the buses that run every day, but also the spare vehicles we have, the vehicles we take on athletic and field trips.
Correct.
And if you look at the average throughout the Lincoln Intermediate Unit, which is the region that we are part of, I think we're pretty much cutting that average age in half in some cases.
I think so, yes.
So maybe, Phil, tell us a little bit about what makes a newer fleet safer in your eyes.
Well, there's a lot of different things that enter into it, but just the technology in some of the newer fleet. One of the things that we have experienced with the newest buses that we have is that they have literally changed the design of the seat. They've taken the compartmentalizing of a school bus seat and made it even safer than it was before by raising that seat a little bit higher, making it a higher impact seat so it absorbs the impact better. Those are just a few little items, but the newer a fleet is, the less we have to spend, number one, on maintenance, but the maintenance is not fixing something that's really old that has been worn out. You've got a new fleet. It's just like when you buy a new car. You don't have to have it serviced as often as you do an old car. So the new buses are, just so much easier to maintain that high quality of maintenance that to have an old fleet is a very big disadvantage. Not that they can't be safe, but it takes a lot more to keep them that way.
Mm-hmm. And in addition to what you've just mentioned, I think a newer fleet certainly looks nicer. And
they're pretty. Yes, they are.
We've heard that kind of feedback from the community, so we appreciate that. As we talk about the fleet, let's take a look at some of the video that we shot out at the depot. One thing that I want to talk about specifically is the kind of technology that we use on our buses now to keep them safe. Mm-hmm. So maybe get into what does a pre-trip look like, and what kind of technology do we use to make sure that the drivers are pre-tripping their buses in a proper way?
Well, fortunately, there's a pre-trip inspection is something that is required by law, that every driver before they drive that vehicle gets out and does a thorough pre-trip inspection, and it checks all of the components of the bus, not just the lighting systems, but seat, that they're secure, the tires, the shock absorbers, the entire underside of the bus, all of the emergency exits, all of the windows, the windshield wipers, headlights, every little thing on the bus has to be inspected. We have a system that is put out by Zonar, which is a system that not only is a GPS system for the bus, so we know where the buses are at all times, but it also does an electronic inspection of the bus. And you'll see on the video that there's a wand that the drivers will actually use, that there are electronic buttons all around the bus that literally list everything that driver should be looking for in that particular area of the bus, and that they can literally mark that everything's acceptable, or if there is a defect, they can narrow it down to exactly what the defect is and what needs to be taken care of by the mechanics on the bus.
Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned in that video, we'll actually see a driver opening up the hood of the bus.
Correct.
They're not just looking on the outside of the bus, but they're also running that Zonar wand over things in the engine compartment.
That's correct. Right? They check the entire engine compartment, all of the belts, all of the hoses, all of the wiring that's under there to make sure that nothing's torn, frayed, leaking. They check all the fluid levels on the bus to make sure that they're not going to damage that engine by running it. And there are things that they can see. They also check the brake systems with that thing open, the air brake systems, the slack adjusters, the tie rods, the cross members. They can check all of that things with that hood open.
Now, maybe once they've gone through their pre-trip, they're out on the road, there are a couple of other pieces of technology that we've put on these vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the child check system very quickly.
Yeah, child checkmate and theftmate is a ingenious thing to help us to make sure that we never have a sleeping student or any student left on the bus at the conclusion of a run. It is a system that will make the driver walk completely to the back of the bus to deactivate the system, so they can physically look into every seat and under every seat before they exit the bus. Otherwise, the horns and buzzers and whistles go off, and we know that bus wasn't properly checked. Mm-hmm. We also do what is called a placard system. So we do a two-fold system where they actually hang a sign in the back of the bus in the rear window that says this bus is empty. So there's checks and balances, so they normally can't do one without the other. So it is good, and knock on wood, we have never ever had a student left on a bus.
And that's an excellent track record that First Student has. Moving on, we also have some additional equipment in the bus. We have cameras now in every one of our buses. Can you talk about the cameras?
Yes, we actually have 3 cameras. They are all digital cameras. There's one located in the front of the bus that shoots the entire length of the bus. There's one located directly over the driver's head that focuses on the service door, the door that the students enter and exit the bus. So if anything would happen in that doorway area, we have good visual of what exactly happened. We also have one in the back of the bus that gives us just a different angle so we can make sure that everybody's safe. These camera systems have both audio and video, which is a big plus for us in a lot of ways, especially student safety.
Mm-hmm. And I can tell you from the district standpoint, getting that video from the bus is the next best thing to being there. And all of our principals, assistant principals, myself in transportation, when we have the opportunity to take a look at what's happening in a vehicle and not just see, you know, what particular safety issues are coming up with the driver, let's say, but also right behind the driver with potentially the 72 kids.
Right.
We can zoom right in on particular incidents. We can see what's happening. In many cases, we can hear what's happening, and then we can address those safety issues before they become a bigger problem down the road or become habitual. So it's very beneficial for us to be able to see that inside the bus. In addition to the video, audio, the child check system, there are some PA systems that we've just recently installed.
Yes, we did.
In all of our buses. What's the thought process behind putting PA systems in a school bus?
Well, one of the thoughts that we came up with, fortunately the district and myself, we sat down and kind of collaborated and tried to figure out, but one of the complaints actually that we were getting is that when a driver had to address the students in the back of the bus, needless to say, in a 72 passenger bus, you're 38 feet away from the students and there's a little bit of noise on the bus. The driver had to literally yell for them to be heard. And a lot of times that was very intimidating for the younger students that sit in the front of the bus. So to overcome that, we put the PA systems on the bus so the driver can speak in a normal tone of voice and be heard very well throughout the entire bus. So there wasn't somebody thinking that they were in trouble or mad, just a way to communicate on a more positive level.
Sure.
Without having to yell and scream to get your point across.
And you might not think that plays into safety, but it really does.
Yes, it does.
All of those instances where the driver might have trouble communicating with the children behind him or her is a potential distraction that's going to take their eyes off the road. And really,
absolutely,
as much as we like our drivers watching what the kids are doing, their focus does need to be in front of them on any road pedestrian hazards.
That's exactly
anything
right.
like that.
It's hard to drive a bus through a rear view mirror.
Exactly, exactly. Last but certainly not least, we've installed strobe lights on all of our vehicles.
Yep.
Obviously, that's going to improve visibility in dark or foggy conditions. How often do our buses run the strobe lights?
They run them all the time. We do not run the buses without the strobe lights on. If it's beautiful sunny day, the strobe lights are on. If it's a snowy, rainy, cloudy day with a lot of fog, the strobe lights are on. The visibility is something that is invaluable. School buses are the color they are because it's the easiest color to see. However, I have been to more than one accident where, quote unquote, we never saw the bus. We don't want that to happen. We want folks to be able to see those buses. So the strobe lights, whether the weather is good or bad, is definitely a benefit to have on those buses.
It's a fantastic system, and I agree. It absolutely increases the visibility and makes our buses even safer out on the road. Again, internally, I know there's often some dialogue about seat belts, no seat belts. Here in Pennsylvania, we don't put seat belts on those 72 passenger buses.
Right.
Let's talk about the issue of compartmentalization. That seems to be the word that's used when we talk about why our school buses are safe for children to ride on, even without what you might think is the protection of a seat belt. So what is compartmentalization?
Compartmentalization is the design actually that school bus seats are made by, which is actually they're closer together front to back. They're higher and they have a very shock absorbing back on them. It's kind of like eggs in an egg carton is the easiest way to describe the compartmentalization. If a student is sitting properly in the bus, they will be hurt by tests that have been done more by wearing a seatbelt with a shoulder strap than actually hitting the back of the seat in front of them if they're seated correctly. School buses are a much higher vehicle that are built to protect the students. They're literally a tank on wheels. The reinforcement in the sides, the back, and the frame of a school bus create to where when they are involved in an accident, that all that energy is absorbed into that frame and not passed on to the passengers. So that's part of the design. Now the smaller buses, the mini buses that have 24 to 28 students on them, they all have seat belts because they're not as high up. They're still built very sturdy, but the safety factor of having those seat belts for those students is in different crash tests very necessary.
And I know that our students and parents obviously have noticed on our newer buses the increased size and height of the seat.
Yes.
And it certainly makes it more difficult to talk to the students in front of and behind you.
And to see them.
But again, we want to make sure that they understand that they need to be inside the seats.
That's right.
We have enough space for every child on our buses to be within the seat and to take advantage of, again, that compartmentalization in the event of any kind of incident on the bus. Moving on, this is one of the big pushes, I think, for School Bus Safety Week, is this idea of the school bus passing laws. Specifically, we try to crack down on people who are passing school buses while they have their lights on and the sign out.
Right.
So give us a little bit more insight into school bus passing and maybe what happens when a school bus is passed and what's the fallout from that kind of an incident.
There's during School Bus Safety Week, the Wednesday of School Bus Safety Week, they run a program called Operation Safe Stop, where all of the school districts, there's over 100 school districts in Pennsylvania that participate, police forces in the area, school bus companies, and it is a heightened awareness of reporting any school bus violation. A school bus violation is when any motor vehicle passes a school bus that is stopped with his red lights on and the stop sign out. If you are convicted of that, you will lose your license for 6 months. You have a $250 fine plus court costs, and we know that the court costs sometimes can be more than the fine. And you also get 5 points against your license. So it is something that is very important that they're trying to make every driver aware what the consequences are and the reason for it. If a child is outside of that bus and a car passes that school bus, the chance of that student being injured and or killed become very high. And everything is about the safety of the students. So Operation Safe Stop is something that is an educational process, but also a heightened awareness for safe school bus stops. And there are certain rules. I mean, you have to stop for a school bus if it's 8 ways or on, the red lights with the stop sign out, if you are either behind it or in front of it. If you're at an intersection, you have to stop. Whether you're on the cross street or not, by law, you have to stop. If you are on a roadway that is divided by a singing barrier, or the singing barrier is where they have the grooves in the road that is not a physical barrier, those vehicles, even though you're not going the same direction, still have to stop, even if it's a multiple lane road. The only time that you don't have to stop is if there is literally a divided highway where there is either a median or a barrier, like a J barriers on the highway that are up, then they don't have to stop. But all other instances, they have to stop until the lights are out and the students have reached a point of safety.
Exactly. And like I said, they take it very seriously.
Yes.
We take it very seriously. First Student in the district have partnered with Southern Regional and
Yes,
also
we
the
have.
state police for well before I got into the transportation office on participating in that Operation Safe Stop, logging any violations, and unfortunately when they do come along, making sure that people are aware of what they've done, and there's a penalty to pay when you put our students' safety at risk.
Correct.
When we talk about the school bus, maybe there's a phrase, the danger zone. We talk about the danger zone around the
Correct.
school bus. This is part of why it's so important that vehicles not pass a school bus when students are loading and unloading. As you mentioned, when the 8-way lights are on, the stop sign is out, and the arm extends from the front of the bus. Tell us about the danger zone around the school bus and what the different areas of it are, what the dangers are.
Okay, there's actually 2 different zones of danger around a school bus. 10 feet entirely around the school bus is considered the danger zone. That is an area where anything can happen. The area directly in front of the school bus and the area by the right rear wheels are the 2 most dangerous spots on the school bus. Most students that are injured or killed by their own school bus are because something fell, they got down into the blind spots, and were actually hit by their own school bus, tragically. So these areas are an area that we try to educate students that when they get off of the school bus, if anything would drop, they go straight back to the driver to let them know that something fell, not just go after it, number one. Number two, to walk 5 giant steps, which we figure for a student is at least 10 feet, directly away from the bus before they go either right or left, depending on where they have to go home. Now, if a student has to cross the school bus, across the street, they have to go past the crossing arm. The driver can see them without any mirrors, can see them then, and they have to wait for a signal from the driver that the driver assures them that the coast is clear going both directions behind that bus so they can safely cross the street and get to their point of safety. The drivers will not deactivate their 8-way lights until those students are at a point of safety.
Mm-hmm. And we try to reiterate this every year, especially with the younger students.
Yes, we do.
When we have drivers come into our buildings and talk about bus safety, including the danger zone around the school bus.
Exactly.
And you know, really, even though the bus has so many mirrors positioned all around it, you're always going to have those particularly dangerous spots around a school bus where our kids need to be careful.
Yes, absolutely.
Moving on here, you know, I think we've done a pretty good job of covering all the major bullet points. Everyone knows that there are certainly other things that we do, the mandatory 2 school bus evacuations every year being one of them. Here at Southern York, I know you know this, we split. We have our fall evacuation in September, and we have our spring or winter evacuation in March. And we always have one that goes out the front door of the bus, and then we have one that goes out the back door. And I think what our goal has been is to make sure that no matter which direction students need to evacuate the vehicle from, they're listening to the bus driver. They're trained on where certain key pieces of technology or communication tools or bus rosters, medical lists are located within the vehicle. What else does a school bus driver show to the children during our bus evacuation drills?
Well, they show them, if the driver would be capacitated, how to put the emergency brake on in the vehicle so the bus is secure, how to radio to dispatch to let them know that there has been an issue on the bus. Then they give them, who they are, where they are, and what has happened, so we can get 911 or be dispatched out to the scene. They also show them how to get off of the bus properly, whether it's out the front service door or out the rear door, emergency door, so that they are not injured getting out of the bus, but yet so that they get out of the bus in a controlled fashion. We also have students that are helpers that help get them out of the bus, keep them together so that they are not spread out and nobody gets lost, and that they're all 100% accounted for before they get back on that bus. Mm-hmm. They also know where the fire extinguisher is and technically, verbally, how to use it. A demonstration is not done, but maybe that's something we'll think about in the future.
Sure.
But they also know where it's at and how to take it out of its cradle and how to use it if it was necessary.
And that's great information, and I appreciate, and I think all of our staff and students and parents appreciate everything that First Student does to help us keep our school buses safe. Obviously, I think the winning formula here is it takes great bus drivers, a great fleet, and the cooperation of staff, teachers, parents, and students to make sure that our school buses are running in a safe way every day of the school year. So for myself, Doug Walters, and Mr. Phil Jeffrey, the location manager from First Student, we thank you for taking a part in this Warrior Chat, and we'll see you next time.